The following Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast is the hot tags, and it is scheduled to break down some of the current events, the rumors, the news, the gossip, and everything else that went down in the world of professional wrestling over the past few days. And introducing first and only, I am your host, as always, Tony Mango, flying solo on this edition, but hopefully you guys will join me, at least in the comments section below, and have a little bit of fun talking about some different topics. So, first things first, if you are in the comments, hit that subscribe button on YouTube if you haven't done that already, and ring that little bell for notifications, because we got a lot of content coming your way over the next couple of days, actually over the next couple of weeks, and you should be familiar with some of these things. I've mentioned it heading up, coming in the future and all that, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up as well for the more immediate future. One of the things that we're doing is that we are officially starting the first round of the 2019 Sexiest WWE Superstars Tournament. So with that in mind and that officially kicking off, that means you got 2 more podcasts coming your way, as well as the Stomping Grounds pay-per-view predictions, and then eventually, of course, when the pay-per-view happens, the post-show for that. And then following that, we're going to get into the next round of the hot tags, but then we've got so many things. We've got round 2 of the tournament, so men's bracket broken down, the women's bracket broken down for that. We've got the Fyter Fest predictions and post-show, but next week is also going to be the mailbag. So that one, again, is going to be one of those things where I'm not going to be able to pick all the questions or 30 questions or anything like that, because there's just way too many things to cram in there. But at the same time, I still want to give you guys some kind of a mailbag. So if you have any questions that you want to submit for that, go ahead and do that as soon as possible. And that way I will backlog those, and that'll make it a hell of a lot easier for me to do that. And following that, I don't know what we're going to do, but, we'll get into that stuff when we get into it. But I wanted to kick things off by just reminding everybody about that tournament, because now you can officially vote for the 32 men and women that are in the actual tournament. Go ahead and pick your favorites. Go do that while you can, because I'm not too sure exactly when I'm going to shut off the polls, but they started off at Monday morning around, I think it was like 1 in the morning or so, and I'll probably shut them off at some point on next Monday or so, like the Monday afternoon or whatever the case may be. With the pay-per-view going on, that's going to make it a little bit harder for me to do the work on Sunday night like I did, but I don't know, maybe I'll carry it on into Tuesday. Point being, we're already 3 minutes into this and I haven't gotten anywhere. The point being is the first round of the Sexiest WWE Superstars Tournament is going down, so go ahead and vote for that. And really quickly, while I'm doing plugs, just follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Smark Out Moment. But I'll get into more plugs a little bit later on. Let's get into the hot tags here, and there's a couple of different things to talk about. One of them being, just a little side note, Sasha Banks got a puppy. The puppy's name is Ryu, depending on how much you want to get into the Street Fighter stuff. I always used to say Ryu, but Ryu Maivia Ton. It's a little corgi, cute little thing. So yeah, congrats to those. It's just one of those little stupid things I wanted to throw out there. A couple other quicker things. Dana Brooke got busted open during her match on Main Event. She was wrestling Sarah Logan. The referee stopped the match, and this all happened about from a turnbuckle spot. So I have not heard or seen anywhere online anything that's indicating that she is actually injured. I mean, she's obviously injured. She's bleeding. That's, certain injuries at a certain point, but nothing as far as like concussions or, needing surgery or anything. I haven't seen anything like that, but then again, it is Main Event, so people don't pay too much attention to that kind of stuff. And maybe we're going to hear about that over the next couple of days or so, but if that happens, we will obviously make some kind of reference to it here and there. I don't think that that's the case. It's probably just like, something a little bit sharp caught her, and that's about it. But needless to say, that sucks. So hopefully she gets better when that. Let's talk about the fact that Clash of Champions moved around. This was fun to readjust all my pay-per-view schedule stuff, but Clash of Champions was previously advertised as being October 6th, and there was supposed to be Hell in a Cell that was happening in September. Well, now September 15th is going to be Clash of Champions, and there's not necessarily any confirmation 100% when it comes to the whole Saudi Arabia thing in November, the October pay-per-view, and I guess technically speaking, we probably don't have any full-on confirmation about TLC in December, but we do know, at least going forward, certain different events, and you can see the full breakdown on smarkoutmoment.com for the WWE pay-per-view schedule. It's all updated right now. But the Clash of Champions event is going to take place at the Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina, September 15th, which that on itself is a news story, not necessarily like a hot tag, but this is where it gets interesting. I don't know if you've kept track of this. I know I've mentioned it multiple times on the show, and I've mentioned it multiple times in articles and different things on eWrestling News and Bleacher Report and Smark Out Moment. But October 6th was supposed to be the original time that they were broadcasting it, which meant that that was going to happen 2 days after the Friday premiere of SmackDown on Fox. And that was one of my main things that I was looking at as saying, oh man, they're going to end this brand split. They're going to do this Clash of Champions thing. It's going to be merging the titles, and it's going to be like all the champions showing up on SmackDown, and that they would end up putting the title on Brock Lesnar around that point. And now that they don't have that happening right afterward, changes the game a little bit. Now, Clash of Champions could still be a situation where they do that, or Clash of Champions could literally just be another random pay-per-view, and they just like the name, and they're just using that and whatever. But Clash of Champions has been used in a couple of different ways in the past, especially when it was Night of Champions, and it was even Vengeance Night of Champions at one point. But they have used it as random pay-per-view. They have used it as every championship is on the line. And they've actually used it as champion versus champion, because we had that one triple threat match with Booker T, Big Show, and John Cena, if I remember correctly. That was, if I am remembering this correctly, then I think it's pretty good that I'm doing it. But I think it was 2006 or 2007. John Cena was the WWE champion on Raw. Booker T was the World Heavyweight champion on SmackDown. And Big Show was the ECW champion on, obviously, ECW. It's not like Velocity or something. And that means that this could be kind of anything. And I still think that there's a possibility that Clash of Champions is when they merge the championships, because this wild card rule is proving 100% that they do not like that brand split. They want Roman Reigns on both shows, The New Day on both shows, Seth Rollins whenever he can go, Alexa where she can go. They want that to be the case. And it's not good in a lot of different ways. But then again, we have complained about both the brand split and the non-brand split. It's just essentially WWE creative, not necessarily doing the best possible case scenario on either side. And if they merge the brand split thing together again, and we end up getting the same situation that we got before, where it's only the same 5 people are highlighted every single week, twice a week, then that's going to be terrible. That's the way that it is when it comes to the wildcard rule, it seems. But if we get something else, then I don't know. I still think that it's a possibility that we get some kind of a merging of the titles, and then at Survivor Series, we get the standard just baby faces versus heels, traditional elimination tag team matches, and not the Team Raw versus Team SmackDown type thing. Or maybe we get something like an NXT invasion, and we get Team NXT versus Team Raw and SmackDown, or, you know, whatever the case may be like that. There has been no indication that that is actually what they're going to do, because the only things that they have advertised for them are Dolph Ziggler versus Kofi Kingston, and I think it's Seth Rollins versus Baron Corbin or something. But those things don't hold a lot of weight unless there's something very specific. You know, if they advertise well in advance that Shinsuke Nakamura is going to be fighting for the United States Championship, you start wondering, well, what are they doing? Are they going to bring him over to Monday Night Raw? Is this going to be the case? You know, that's when you can actually start speculating. If they're just saying rematches of the feuds that are going on right now, look, it's not happening. We're not going to get Dolph Ziggler versus Kofi Kingston twice now during this month, and then continue that all throughout the rest of June, all throughout July, all throughout August, and then 2 weeks into September, and then have them have another match there. So those are placeholder matches. Card is always subject to change. They just want something to advertise. I don't think that that's really going to sell tickets, but then again, hey, look at what's happening with Stomping Grounds. So rematches are not the best course of action. I don't think that they're going to be dumb enough to do rematches like that, or those in particular. They might be rematches from the pay-per-view beforehand. I don't know. But I do think that Clash of Champions is still, nevertheless, something to really keep your eyes on. I still think that there's a good chance that we get champion versus champion, merge titles. I still think that there's a good possibility that Brock Lesnar cashes in around that time frame. There's a lot of different things that they could do. So definitely keep your eyes on that one. And then as far as what the October event's going to be, I'm assuming that's just Hell in a Cell, that they just kind of swapped the two. Hell in a Cell's been in October quite a bit, so that kind of works with that sort of time frame. And hey, if they end up doing that, then you heard it here first. Let's talk about the ride-along episode that was following Monday Night Raw tonight. That was the bar car. On one car, you had Sheamus and Cesaro, and in another car, you had R-Truth and Carmella. And I actually kind of like this episode. I would say on the see it and skip it scale, that this is more of a see it. I mean, it's kind of funny moments here and there. R-Truth doesn't know his plurals. He thinks that it's geeses and fishes and some different things like that. A couple little puns from Cesaro, and just kind of like a general relaxed sort of feel. So I like that one. I think that one's worth checking out. I'll have to say, though, not going to feel the same when it comes to WWE the day of Super Showdown 2019. That special on YouTube was not something that I think was really worth it. They really kind of didn't highlight anything that actually seemed to have happened backstage. Now, there are reports that that whole Goldberg and Undertaker argument was not a thing. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But if there was anything, you didn't get to see it because they just acted like, hey, everything went down perfectly great and it was all amazing and everybody loved it. And I hate that type of propaganda. So not the biggest fan of that one. I think that you don't need to bother checking that out whatsoever. But what you should check out is our merchandise over on TeePublic and Redbubble, because that's where I've got t-shirts and some other kinds of different things. There's a wide variety of different type of merch options, but lots of different designs to go along with that. So there's different things on Smark Out Moment, Fanboys Anonymous, and a Mango Tees on both the Redbubble and the TeePublic. So go ahead and check them out if you want to buy a t-shirt or something like that. What do we got here? What else we got going on? Well, I mean, right now I'm kind of still decompressing a little bit when it comes to Monday Night Raw. So I haven't done this in a while. Let's talk about what happened on Monday Night Raw. Out of the things that happened throughout the night, wide variety of some good, some bad. And if you didn't check out Raw and you're listening to this, then I kind of don't blame you the way that certain things have gone. But maybe you should have checked it out, actually, because from what I was able to really kind of sit and comprehend, didn't seem like it was all that bad of an episode. And I say that because, I mean, I'm working on multiple different sites at the same time and lots of different projects and stuff, so I can't, like, get fully engrossed. So some details are always going to slip by, and I kind of usually try to preface things a little bit in that way because, maybe it's going to be a different experience if you're really, really into it more. But to kind of recap what happened on Raw, we got a new #1 contender for the United States Championship. Ricochet won, so he's going to be facing Samoa Joe for the U.S. title at Stomping Grounds. We're going to talk more about that, of course, on the predictions post. But that was a fun segment for the most part. It highlighted Braun Strowman. He pinned Cesaro and Bobby Lashley, and the two of them actually helped Ricochet beat him, which was really kind of strange. Kind of helping a babyface do something is really weird. And for the people that are going to jump on that and be like, oh my God, they turned babyface. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Trust me. But Ricochet then finished off The Miz and won the championship title opportunity that way. But they had this recurring theme throughout the night where Seth Rollins kept attacking anybody who was associating themselves with Baron Corbin. And with that in mind, that was one of the fun kind of threads that they threw in there that I really kind of enjoyed quite a bit. There was a thing with Elias getting attacked. Then the babyfaces kind of attacked him even more, and I like that quite a bit because it's just like, beating a guy when he's kicking a guy when he's down. I was gonna say beating a dead horse, but that was not the metaphor that would have gone well with that. I didn't like the running theme of Shane McMahontyre. I almost called him. Jeez, I am so brain dead. Shane McMahon, Drew McIntyre, and the Revival hanging out in the VIP lounge. That was poorly executed in a couple different ways. They had like some audio problems, and I did like the Heath Slater part of that, where Slater comes in asking for a raise. He gets denied by Shane, and then Drew McIntyre pretends that he's going to give him a little bit of money to help him out, yet he just uses that as a ruse to beat the crap out of him. And in particular, I love that the Revival pocketed some of the money, so that was really kind of fun. But then that just led into Roman Reigns beating the crap out of everybody. And as much as I want Roman Reigns to be in a much better position than he is right now, I don't think that this was necessarily the way to get that going. And for him to beat down Shane McMahon just feels hollow after all this crappy feud. And they took up too much time. I didn't like that. But I did like the Baron Corbin stuff with the recurring Rollins beats the crap out of everybody type thing. I like how he attacked Eric Young, even though Eric Young was like, oh, I'm not going to take the job and whatever. In particular, I really liked when Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn called out EC3 as being the referee, and he got attacked from behind. And then the New Day just kind of played around with him a little bit. EC3, top guy, man. He is somebody that they were really underutilizing. And I love that the crowd got really behind him, because maybe that's going to turn things around a little bit. I really hope that that's the case. What else we had going on? We had Daniel Bryan against Seth Rollins a little bit later on. Not really too much to talk about on that one, but a little bit more along the lines of the Alexa Bliss and Bayley feud. Bliss and Nikki Cross failed to win the Women's Tag Team Championship. And one of the reasons why that's the case is because the women's tag titles are going to be defended against the Kabuki Warriors in the Tokyo show. That's the June 29th event, if I remember correctly. They're running, I think, 2 shows. But I'm assuming, despite the complete lack of a push from the Kabuki Warriors on SmackDown, I mean, they have not made any appearances whatsoever and done anything of note. I assume that they are winning those tag titles at that show, and that's going to be like the big takeaway. But another thing that's actually going on that is Triple H is going to be teaming with AJ Styles and the Good Brothers against, I think it's Bobby Lashley, Baron Corbin, who are the other two? My God, I'm blanking on them. Drew McIntyre and Samoa Joe, and they're having an 8-man tag team match, and that seemed really kind of just out of the blue, and like, why is this happening and whatever, and why do these people keep teaming up with each other on these shows? But they started to sow a little bit of seeds for that with AJ Styles in a backstage segment talking to Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, saying that they need to get serious, they need to start winning matches, they need to start appearing on shows, and even though they lost to the Usos, it's at least something. And I feel like there's some down parts to this episode. Like, I really just do not like Paul Heyman going out there and saying, hey, remember everybody, Brock Lesnar might be able to pop up at Stomping Grounds. You should tune in and watch, because it's so just transparent, and I just hate that. By no means do I dislike Paul Heyman. I just dislike that Paul Heyman has been shoved into this role where he cuts the same promo all the time, and that he's almost unnecessary. Like, you don't need to actually listen to anything that Paul Heyman says anymore. But despite how I didn't really like that, and I actually didn't really even like the Firefly Funhouse this week. It was not really like my favorite one of that. But I think that whoever was responsible on the writing team that created this through line of Seth Rollins attacking people that are pro Baron Corbin, that I think was the highlight of this. And I just kind of wanted to shout out something positive, because we're always crapping on WWE, and we're always acting like everything is as bad as the Becky Lynch and Lacey Evans segment, which I hate how much I hate the Lacey Evans promos lately. Every single line feels like she's just like struggling to remember what it is, and she's just not being herself. But as much as we crap on stuff like that, I want to give a little bit of praise to things that are really good. So yeah, I think that was actually a step in the right direction for Monday Night Raw. Still lots of problems, but hey, can't win them all, right? You can't win some of them. But I really quickly want to drop another plug out here for the Patreon. And if you don't know what that is, go to patreon.com, check it out. It's just a donation service and stuff. And I've got one for Smark Out Moment and one as well for Fanboys Anonymous. So obviously, if you don't know what Fanboys Anonymous is, it's my spot for the geek culture side of things, like movie reviews and stuff. So Toy Story 4 is coming out soon. I'm going to be checking that out, reviewing that pretty soon, most likely with Caroline joining me in the mix with that. I might do a Making the Grade and do an editorial instead of a podcast. I'm not too sure. But hey, whatever is happening there, you go to fanboysanonymous.com, you follow the Facebook and Twitter, you subscribe to the YouTube, you'll find out. That's how it works. So Patreon's another thing when it comes to that, and if you want me to do more projects on the side, like the Fanboys Anonymous stuff, or if you want me to do more things in particular with Smark Out Moment, or just more things in general, bring back the All Talk show, do more podcasts on Smack Talk, whatever the case may be, hit up the Patreon, because that is the big motivator. Money makes the world go round, and I don't have enough of it. So, let's talk about Scarlett Bordeaux. We have talked a couple times now about these incidents at Ring of Honor, and this was not a Ring of Honor event, but this was an incident that happened at the AAA Worldwide event. She was groped by some idiot drunken fan, and by the way, that's never an excuse for anybody that's like, oh, you know, he's drunk, so he's acting like an asshole. No, that's never an excuse, and this is the type of just soapbox moment of being like, we've talked about how some of these things over the past couple of weeks have been like, well, there's a little bit of a gray area. Do you actually push the limit when you're doing this, whatever? You don't grab anybody, whether it's a man or a woman, and do that without any kind of consent. It's like, you just don't. And this dude's clearly trying to cop a feel, and that's not okay. So, as much as the whole discussion that we've had with the, yelling certain things and stuff has been like, well, there's a little bit of an argument here and there for certain things. And what's the limit of when you get to verbal assault versus whatever? No, dude, this is just flat out wrong. You don't do it. Scarlett Bordeaux could be wearing literally nothing, and it's not an invitation for that. So it's just something, a little soapbox moment. I know that hopefully everybody that's listening to this doesn't need that information to be able to, understand that. But hey, just wanted to put it out there because this is another incident that's happening with fans. And if we're, going to keep having this shit happen, we're going to have to keep talking about it. And that's unfortunate. And we got, two more hot tags that I wanted to break down here. One of them being the New Japan Pro Wrestling G1 Climax 29 blocks have been announced. The Block A and Block B participants are as follows. And yeah, I know you're like, wait a minute, why is Tony covering this? Oh, it's because I know some of these people. There's 20 people, and I know these names. Not all of them, but I know some of them. So Block A consists of Kazuchika Okada, Zack Sabre Jr., Hiroshi Tanahashi, Kota Ibushi, Evil, and Sonata, which is kind of funny. Bad Luck Fale, Lance Archer, Will Ospreay, and Kenta. And if you don't know, Kenta is Hideo Itami. And Block B is Naito, Ishii, Juice Robinson, Toru Yano. I do not know who that is off the top of my head, nor do I know Hiroki, I'm not too positive about that, Goto. There's Jay White, Jeff Cobb, Takagi, Taichi? I'm not too sure about that. And Jon Moxley. So the real story here, from an outsider's perspective at the very least, I'm sure Callum at some point can chime in and, fill me in if I'm dead wrong about this, but my big takeaway for this was, with the different pairings that they've got going on, kind of seems like they're keeping Moxley away from certain people, because there's a lot of big names in Block A, and even though I'm sure Block B obviously has its own share of big names, I've heard of Jay White, I've heard of Juice Robinson. Juice Robinson had his match with Jon Moxley before. Naito is a big name, whatever the case may be. It just doesn't feel like that's as big as the other one is, because Okada, Zack Sabre Jr., Tanahashi, Ibushi, Will Ospreay, Kenta, those in particular feel like they're being saved. And it would not shock me, knowing very little about this as well, keep that in mind, do not start, running to your bookies and start betting on this based on my predictions and stuff, but it would not shock me if Moxley reached the point where he got up to, like, Naito, and that's kind of like where they wanted to really kind of build this around, was that's sort of the big selling point of Block B, and then some of the other ones, like Okada and everybody, are saved for another time. I don't know who would necessarily win those types of things, but I guess maybe the whole Tanahashi thing or something. I don't know. But I think it's very interesting that Moxley's on board with that, and not on board with that, not like, I'll give my stamp of approval, but like that he's in the mix with this is what I should say. And I want to know, like, more about these other people. I'm curious what matches are kind of like standing out for everybody that they're looking at that. It's like, man, I can't wait to see, like, Jay White against Naito, or, you know, like, whatever the case may be. Yeah, so I am sure that Rob and Callum will get much deeper into this at another time. Some kind of breakdown of the tournament, maybe on a podcast form, maybe somehow working that into the editorial side of Smark Out Moment. I don't know, but hey, stay tuned for that kind of stuff. It's happening somewhere down the line. The final story that I want to talk about for tonight, or for today, I mean, it's 12:05 a.m., so I guess it's technically today, is that Mike and Maria Kanellis have supposedly re-signed with WWE. They have signed 5-year contracts that are much better than what they were getting before, and this whole negotiation tactic of saying, like, well, we're going to see you later, or stuff is going to expire and all that, seems to have worked. Now, I don't in any way put any kind of blame on them as far as that. Like, I think that that's great to negotiate, and that put them in a much better position, and I'm sure that if I were in their shoes, I would definitely do something similar. I mean, not necessarily 100% exactly what that was, but I would try to get as much money as I possibly could too. And that seems to have worked out for them pretty well. But I gotta say, I'm honestly disappointed behind this. And this might come off a little bit strange, but I wasn't really feeling what they were doing in WWE. I feel like I had heard a lot about Mike Bennett, and I was obviously familiar with Maria because she was there when I was watching WWE, and I, went back and checked out some other stuff and whatever like that. But I never really thought that Maria was like the most captivating character, and she certainly was never like the best when it came to in-ring talent and stuff. And she would be one of the first people to acknowledge that. But I felt like there was a lot of hype about this pairing. And when they came in, everybody's talking about, man, this guy's like one of the big guys in the future, and so on and so forth. And they just fizzled out almost immediately, never recovered from it. And I can't tell you a single positive that I feel that they necessarily bring to the roster right now. And that might not even be their fault as well. Maybe they've got plenty of ideas that they've just never been able to utilize. But I don't really like them in WWE. And what sounds odd about this is not liking them in WWE made me want them to leave for 2 different reasons. One of them being, if they aren't good and everybody's just kind of hyping them up and they're not my style, then I would rather them not be in WWE at all, and I'd rather that time go to somebody else. But if they are good and WWE is just not utilizing them, and that's probably not going to change over the next 5 years, then I would have rather had them leave, go to AEW, and be something that's actually much more worth investing in. So now that they are sticking around for 5 years, I feel like they did that for complacency reasons on both sides. Like, WWE didn't want to lose them to AEW, and they wanted to take the better pay job with like the least amount of gigs or something like that, and the more financial stability, which, hey, if that's the case, I 100% totally see where they're going from. They have a daughter, so why wouldn't you want to have that financial security? But the security of that benefits them more than it benefits anybody else, like benefits the fans. And as much as that's great for them, if they aren't going to do better in WWE, not all that interested in seeing what they've got for the next 5 years. I got to imagine Mike and Maria Kanellis, unless there is some kind of big change in the way that they're pushing themselves and the way that they're projected onto programming and the way that they just are doing things, like Mike Kanellis' matches and Maria's promos and everything else that goes along with that. Unless there's an upgrade on all accounts for that, I'm just assuming that he's just going to stick around and be a jobber for 5 years. And I just don't care about that. It's like, well, did you really need to sign these contracts with these people if you're not going to utilize them like that? Why waste the money when you can just invest that time in somebody else? It's not like there's so much stock in them that, it's just one of those things that not knowing the backstage information about that means that I can't really chime in. But at the same time, I go with history, and history has not been well to the Kanellis family with that. So I will reserve a little bit of judgment that maybe things can turn around, because things can always turn around. And until then, I guess we're just going to have to see. But that's going to do me in for the hot tags. And I mentioned this before, but I want you to chime in on the comments section below. If you're listening on Anchor or iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play or Spotify or any of the other kind of audio-only things, and you can't leave a comment on this, then go to smarkoutmoment.com and leave a comment there. And while you're over there on whatever that platform is, like Podbean or whatever, give us a review, because that stuff's going to greatly, greatly help us. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button and maybe even share it. Follow us, whatever, lots of platforms, lots of social media. All the support's greatly appreciated, everybody. Check out all the other plugs that I mentioned before, Patreon and Facebook and Twitter and blah, blah, blah. But most importantly, out of everything else, just keep staying tuned to Smark Out Moment and Smack Talk, because we've got that tournament coming up. That's the next time you're going to be hearing this voice. And we're going to just kind of break down the men's bracket and the women's bracket of round one, get into the Stomping Grounds stuff, get into the Stomping Grounds post show to follow that. Week after that, we're getting the mailbag, we're getting Fighter Fest, we're getting round 2 of the tournament, and everything else that's happening. So send in those mailbag questions, vote on those tournament brackets, stay tuned for the pay-per-view stuff, drop those comments, and see you later. This has been another Smart Out Moment, and I'm being counted out.